Hi, I'm Tommy. Welcome to this second video in my Finite State Machine in Unity tutorial series here on Table Flip Games. In the first video, I explained a little bit about what a finite state machine is, showed you the working example that we're building towards, and started by writing a simple abstract state class that is not only designed for other states to build from, but is also a Unity scriptable object, meaning we can quickly put it together to do what we wish in the editor down the line. In the second video, I'm going to build the first complete state of this example, which is the idle state. This is going to do, well, nothing. But we're going to have it so that the agent communicates this in some way to us, that they have entered that state. So we're going to expand on the existing code, write the idle state, be able to generate an instance of the state in the editor window, and that will prepare us for building an actual finite state machine. So let's quickly refresh on the current work. We have the project and the existing editor setup, as you can see here, but more importantly in the code, I have my abstract FSM state in place. That has three main methods that we wish to exploit. When we're entering a state, updating a state, but also when we exit the state. Plus remember that enter and exit have been declared as virtual methods, meaning we can override them in the new state classes we make, but also update is abstract. Given this is an abstract class, meaning we need to actually implement the update in each of our subsequent state classes. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create the idle state which inherits from this. What I'll do is I'll start off by I'm going to add a new folder under the FSM folder here, and I'll just call it states. And then, let's see, right click on that, and then I'm going to add a new class. And I'm going to call this idle state. Just want to make sure, yep, it's going to be a C# class. I'm fine with that. And add, there we go. And this will take a second. Here we go, and it is now in for me. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to actually make sure that it is inheriting from the abstract class. So after idle state, I put colon, and then I started typing in abstract FSM state, and Visual Studio has already started filling it in for me. So I can just hit enter. And smashing, there we go. It now actually successfully inherits from the abstract class. Now you can see already I've got a couple of, I've got a bit of a red squiggle. If I go down into the error list and have a quick look at what that means, idle state does not implement inherited abstract member abstract FSM state dot update state. What that means is that because we declared this method here as abstract, this has to implement that method in order for it to stop that from happening. So there's two ways we can resolve this. So I can actually just type it in. I'll say public override void update state, and you can see there that Visual Studio is trying to help me out. And also when I put it in, it's automatically entered a not implemented exception. Which is actually quite handy because sometimes it sort of reminds you, like you put this override in order to stop the compiler from giving you a hard time, and then, you know, hours later you're like, oh no, wait, hang on a minute, did I actually implement that? And then you run the game. It's like, nope, you did not. There's another way to quickly do this. If I actually just delete that for a second and save the file, I want to bring the error back up. If we right click on the name of the class and go into quick actions and refactorings, it'll actually offer me the ability to implement the abstract class. If I click on that, it does exactly the same thing for me for free. So two ways to go around it. This is particularly useful if you know fine well what needs to be done and you're like, all right, okay, quickly just use the quick action refactoring and away you go. So for my idle state, it's actually going to be really straightforward. What I want to do is I'm going to override pretty much every single method that I've got available to me. So it's on enable, enter state, update, and exit. On enable, what I want to do is actually declare a state type for this, because I thought that might be quite a nice thing to do. We don't have that yet. Right now we have an execution state, but I'm thinking of adding in a state type. Maybe I'll get to that. But more importantly, when we enter the state, I want to be able to do something specific. So I'm going to override this method and then also call the parent version, this version here. And then subsequently, I'm going to do the same thing for exit. So let's get in. Let's start then with enter state. So I'm going to go public spelling, override. And you can see when I attempt to override, I could finish this myself if I wanted, but Visual Studio actually provides options for me. So it said here, well, actually, you could override enter state, Actually, it says here I could override enter state, I could override exit state on enable. All right, okay. And if I just hit enter, it will do it for me. So first of all, actually, I don't want to break the core functionality of the state. So I want to make sure I call base.enterState. Now, remember, if I actually press F12 on that, that brings me back up here. I want to make sure that this part of the code still runs. And I'm going to make that consistent for every state I make. It always, on enter and exit, calls the base implementation that's in this abstract class. Then after that, I'll type in, let's see, actually what we're going to do for now is I'm just going to have a debug log that says entered idle state. And you're not actually going to be able to see this running properly until the next video. Sorry about that, but this is just the way that I've kind of structured it out. And then let's just return true. Now, you might think, oh well, that's really straightforward. There's going to be more I add to this as this example fleshes out. Also, you can see here debug is causing an error, so I'm just going to make sure I have the using Unity engine at the top here so that we enter that in. And then I'm going to do the same thing for exit state, so public override and yeah, just exit state here. And yep, what we'll do is we'll call the parent version of exit state, and then also we'll add a little debug log that says exiting idle state, and we'll be able to see these happening when we actually run the finite state machine for the first time. I'm just going to return true. Now these are actually going to become much more complicated later on, because there might be a reason why entering the idle state doesn't work. We might have an issue trying to, and we're going to see this when we start having patrols, is I'm going to start putting nav mesh agents into this character to get them to move around the environment, and in the event that we can't access the nav mesh agent to stop it from moving, well, we might actually say that that's an error and that's reason for us not to successfully enter this state, and I can report that back as a bug or a fault in the finite state machine, which can then report back to the user in some way. And we need to get rid of this. Can't really say, oh, you know, let's just throw this exception every single time we update on that particular frame. So at the moment, I don't really have anything that would cause this to change, because one of the things that's going to happen down the line is we're going to add conditions here that will say, hey, you know what, maybe we should move out of this state because something's happening as we've updated the state. We've noticed a change in the world. We want to change what state we're currently in. So at the moment, I'm just going to add another debug log that says updating idle state. Not terribly exciting, but it's going to get us to where we want to be. And for this video, just to kind of quickly wrap it up, the last thing I really want to do is I want to expose this class. I want to expose this in some way so that when I go back into my example here, oh, it's compiling the script, whoops. Come on, hurry up. That when we actually get back in here, I want to be able to create an instance of the state as a scriptable object in the editor. So that's actually a quick fix for me to do. I just go back into my code and I just go up to the idle state again, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to type square brackets for this, create asset menu, file name equals, and we're going to go with idle state. I'll make it all one word just to be safe. Menu name, and I'm going to put a particular menu in the Unity window for me to actually access. FSM. Unity FSM, we'll call it, because that's kind of what I've called this project, states and idle. Yep. Order 1. It doesn't really matter at the moment because it's the only one that we've created. So let me just quickly compile that. And looks like it's compiled okay. Well, it's building still, thinking about it. Come on. Computer's a bit slow today. So now we're back in the Unity editor, and you can see here down in the project we have the idle state, because the code has now been updated from what I've done in Visual Studio, is now appearing here in Unity, which is nice. But also, if I go up into the assets menu, go to create, you now see I've got Unity FSM appearing up the top, states, idle, and it creates me a little idle state. And that is very handy. What I want to quickly do is I don't want to put that in the code folder. I'm actually going to create a new folder for that. FSM states, and I'm going to drag and drop it in there. Now I might actually start coming up with, right now this can't be parameterized, I can't change it, but I could expose variables in these states that allow me to configure them in specific ways. So I might want to create particular permutations of these scriptable objects that only work in very specific ways. So I could have an idle state that's actually timed, that only activates itself, it's only idle for a few seconds and it forces itself out of it. Or we could have an idle state that is permanently idle until it sees the player. Like, there's all these different configurations I could make. And what I could do is I could make different iterations of this same scriptable object and then add them in and configure them in different ways. It really depends on what I want to do in my state machine. So this is all very early at this phase, but also actually quickly just to note, you'll note that I could also actually create this state here inside the project view as well. So it's just kind of a nice little addition for me in order to pull that off. And we'll wrap it up with that. We now have an idle state that is building from the abstract FSM state, but the problem is we can't run it yet, and that's because I haven't actually built the finite state machine yet. I just wanted to already have built a simple state of execution, which in this case is literally empty, and now I can build the FSM and get it to run that state. And so join me in part 3 as we get that up and running. Thanks for watching part 2 of the Finite State Machine tutorials here on Table Flip Games. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more of our game dev tutorials, and join our Patreon for access to all of our yummy source materials. See you later.